Do you think religious leaders are concerned that people using AI might a crisis of faith if they specifically ask? We're talking about something that has access to all these different data sets, and it's just like maybe one weird question away, like, hey, tell me the similarities between these three religious texts and why and how they're different, or provide the historical context of this specific book of the Bible. I know that that's been one that can really get a lot,
hmm
the one that can create a lot of questions. If you already weren't worried about AI and all the impact it has on all of us, now the Vatican's concerned as well. Over the last week, one of the cardinals at the Vatican issued a, for lack of a better term, warning of AI and what it could do to us as we move forward as a species. Specifically, one of the things they mentioned is that if it was not developed appropriately and with human decency in mind, it could lead to an extinction level event. Now, these are pretty impressive statements and pretty powerful statements, especially coming from the Vatican. But my first question, and also welcome to Legitimate Cybersecurity. I'm Frank Downs, and I'm here with Dustin Brewer as always. My first question for you, Dustin, is why is the Vatican concerned now?
It's a good question. So, not too long ago, a group of AI leaders released a statement that basically said the same thing. Like, we need to make sure we have ethical boundaries around AI. We need to make sure that that things are being created, within with a level of humanity behind it. And look, there is this anthropomorphic thing that we tend to do with a lot of things in our life. We do it with pets. We do it with if you have children, you do it with stuffed animals, and now we're doing it with our computers as well. We've kind of
I
always
like
done it,
that. I like that's a good point.
yeah.
We're animal. How do you say it again? Animomorphized.
And
My
anthropomorph,
computer's an anamorph.
anthropomorphic or anthropomorphizing might be a word.
Sure.
Um,
You could have just made
we're
that up, and I would have believed you. So let's
we're
continue.
and to bring that down here, like uh, we're giving human attributes to things that are not human, right? um one of the things I was watching recently, Frank, is someone was giving a talk on like why people are so worried about AI. And they're like, well, we don't understand AI to a certain level, right? Like, it does things and we don't know why it does things, and even the creators don't know why it does the things it does. And I'm like, okay, as a software dev, I have created a piece of software that when I ran it, it did things and I didn't understand why it did things. And so I think that's a very normal thing to happen. I get that this is happening on a different level because it's not just the programming that's going into it, it's the data that's being fed into it that's making it have these decisions as well, right? And so what we're seeing is, and then we also give it these terms like it hallucinates, right? It hallucinates. And I'm like, or it makes things up.
Yeah. Or
or it
or it breaks.
or it breaks, or it gives you incorrect information because its goal is still a one or a zero. It's give me the results or don't, and it always is going to strive to give you the results, regardless of whether it's correct, regardless of whether it's moral, regardless of whether it has any kind of guardrails or not. It doesn't matter. And so we're seeing this concern come out because we have now seen some social lashbacks on this, right? We've seen um, people now dating AI, right? Or at least having
Oh,
some
it's
kind of
so gross.
maybe an inappropriate relationship with it, or maybe not inappropriate. I shouldn't say that. I
Oh, no,
don't
there's a
know.
lot of inappropriate relationships with AI. There was an article that came out this month. It might have been the end of last month, where before and you're seeing more of it now, where people are saying things that are more intimate and not just like passionate or anything, but like intimate parts of them. They're sharing more comfortable sharing it with AI than with anyone else. You have people who are creating these substitutes
Yeah.
of family members that are not dead, by the way. Who maybe they don't like their spouse, and so they're creating relationships. And I'm putting this in quotes, relationships with these things. And it becomes extra sad when you see people who are, we'll say, self-selecting, as it were, off their mortal coil. And the last thing they did was talk to their AIs, not their family, not a person. So I think you're right. I mean, people are creating these relationships based off this technology that is primarily wrapped in a banner of marketing, create using words like you said, hallucination instead of breakage or data contamination and things along those
Incorrect.
lines.
Yeah.
But I can see to an extent why the Vatican would issue something like this. Say that they're concerned that if there's no human dignity in the development of it, then that's an issue. However, think there's a bigger question here to a certain extent. And one is I'm really interested in the timing. Why is it now suddenly that they're making these types of statements? And is it because we're basically just God's AI and or Sims? And they're like, uh-oh, the jig is up.
Yeah, we've created something, right? I'm not willing to say it's artificial intelligence, to be completely honest with you. I think you and I have had this conversation
Yeah, it's
before, where
all ML.
AI is a marketing term. It's like sushi grade tuna. It's something that somebody made up at one point, and now we all use it
First of all, if
because
we're going to use sushi as an example, the biggest win there for them is imitation crab. All right. That's not crab, that's fish. But they're like, do you want crab? You want crab? You want imitation crab? Which crab you want?
crab with a
But they're still
K,
called a
crab with
crab.
a K. Yeah. Which,
Oh,
by the way, you cannot find like regular crab now in sushi restaurants, at least down here. I'm sure up in Maryland you can.
well, they're
Uh,
still in
yeah.
Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. But anyway, so like we have this machine learning capability with a little bit of RPA, robotic process automation, now happening with it, which we are now calling AI. So let's just call it AI. All right, large language models, or even the agentic stuff. But because we have this and because it's become so widely available now and so widespread, now it's everybody's using it, right? And they're most people, I would say, are probably using it appropriately, using it to basically do Google searches for them, right? Which is great. Yeah, it can. It's one of the best things that I've seen Google do in a really long time, which is like when you search for something, it pops up, it just goes and does kind of the research on the first top 10 results for you and then gives you the download of all that. That's what we've all been doing kind of manually, but now it does it automatically for us, which is great. But then there are the people who are using it inappropriately. And so you have this, and I can see the clergy getting a little upset about this, where it's like now it's replacing, when it started replacing therapists a little bit for some people or spouses for some people. We didn't really hear much of anything from the Catholic Church. Now that it might be heading into the spiritual realm of maybe people are talking to it more than they're talking to their priest, more than they're talking to their spiritual leaders are very upset about it and getting involved. And so now it's affecting them, right?
Man,
It's the
the old bugaboo of it's not my problem unless it impacts me directly.
until it is, right? And
My
and now
God.
it is. And so great. Yeah, it's great. I'm not, knocking the Vatican. I'm not knocking the Cardinal for releasing the statements that they released. What I am saying though is that this is why now. This is why now they're kind of coming into it. And we see it with different industries where, at first, artists didn't give a damn about it. And then when it started generating art and started winning art contests, all of a sudden there were strikes. The writers and actors strike. There were there were limiters for blocking the capability of AI to be able to ingest your art and create images off of that. Once it affects a group of people, then all of a sudden it becomes a problem for those groups of people. Now, what the folks in Hollywood did is they put in stipulations into their contracts to protect them, put some kind of protection for AI. Great, they're set. So they're kind of okay with everything now. And now we see the Vatican kind of coming in and being saying the same thing, right? And so it just, again, once it affects a particular group of people, that's when they care.
I almost think it impacts a group of people in a way they don't like. So I'll give you an example here. I would not be surprised. I'm not saying it is common practice, but I would not be surprised if there were several priests and pastors throughout, and pick your religion, right? Imams and whatever you want, that are using AI to generate their sermons now, right? Because
Sure.
it's a research tool, and I'm sure it's pretty, they would. Who wouldn't at this point? But when people start to then change the focus and confide in the AI instead of seeking something, man, that just sounds so unhealthy to me. Side note, even with the
Yeah,
therapist stuff
yeah,
as well,
yeah.
I just think and everyone's got their own opinion on it. But if you're spending if you're spending more time with your AI than your spouse or your therapist or, insert substitutive person, maybe reevaluate the relationship you have with it. But
For sure.
as soon as it becomes that substitute, I can see maybe they're seeing data that who knows? Maybe the Catholic Church has some data on how many Catholics are using AI. I don't know, but I think it brings up a bigger question I'd like to ask you about as well. As we're moving forward, because AI is inevitable, barring cataclysmic events, and wherever Atlas 3 AI or whatever is going, if it hits Earth, then no one's going to care about AI the next day, right? um, but barring substantial changes, AI is still coming, still developing, still going to be used as we go forward. Where do you think religion fits in this new perspective, and where do you think AI and religion should intersect?
That is such a loaded question on me, Frank.
It is.
I'm going to throw it right back at you. How do you feel about that?
So, and this is why I asked you, because I don't know if I know, right? Because, for example, if I find out, someone at our local church or whatever is using AI to create better sermons, I don't have too much of a hard time with that, because I've been
Yeah,
through a lot of sermons growing up and through my life, and there are so many boring sermons.
that you wish were AI.
I'm not saying someone should go to a church specifically for the sermon content, but if they're boring, it's hard to really keep involved, right? So, like, that's fine. But declarations, and I'm putting this through the lens of growing up as the internet kind of matured, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you and I saw, I know that you have a religious background to an extent as well, but the types of churches we were in, the internet was always given this leery eye, I feel like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was always just viewed very, very infrequently, right? Did it
As the
come up
devil.
at church in the context of positive things it could do, right? It would always come up with well, there's a lot of naked people on there. And it's like, whoa, right? Ways, and part of me wonders if this is how Amish people happen, or Luddites, right? Because some technology just becomes so either uncontrollable for a group, or unknowable for a group, or unwieldy for a group, that they're just like, you know what? Pause. This is it. We're not going further. And I can see that, right? But so, taking that context in with AI, I think it can be, again, you and I have this perspective of it's all ones and zeros, it's all bits and bytes. Get
Hmm.
it? It can be used to enhance things, but I don't know if that's necessarily 5 years from now how it's going to be received. And I know it's going to be different based on different sects. I know it's going to be different based on different denominations. I get that, but there are certain vibes that kind of are through lines, especially these days, through at least the church in America. So I kind of take it with a leery eye, unless
Yeah.
they're going to build one that they say is trained off the gospel. Oh no! Oh
Yeah.
no!
But and that's one way to think about this, though, is that yes, it's ones and zeros, but it is data. Like we are talking about, and
Right.
if you look at things like the Bible, the Quran, they are the Torah. They're data. They're just data in a certain format, right? Now, what's important, I think,
What's one way to designate those texts? It's
yeah.
just data. Yeah, I'm
Well,
sure.
hold on, but hold on. Let me finish this thought, because I promise you, I'm not just saying that, like, oh, it's just data. That's all it is. What I'm saying, though, is that it is data that we ingest as humans in order to have our relationship with our spirituality, or with our God, or with our gods, or whatever it is, right? And so, in that respect, I do see this as, because the way that I use AI right now is, sometimes I'll be like, oh, hey, I've got to think about something kind of critically, but I need something to bounce it off of. Sometimes I'll call my buddy Frank, but sometimes I can just pull up ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Like, what do you think? And what are the pros and cons of blah blah blah?" And it's a good thing to bounce things off of, right? And so, in that respect, I can kind of see it being used by um, people with specific religious views as something to bounce those ideas off of. Are you having a hard
Yeah.
time getting along with a family member because they might not have the same religious views as you? AI tends to um, steer in the direction, because it's been programmed to in most ways, of empathy, understanding humanity, right? It can be coerced to not, and it can be programmed to not do those things. And I'm not saying that you should use it for any of these things, but for the most part, that's kind of how I see it as something being used. Like somebody who just can't get a and we see this in cybersecurity. If you just can't understand a hard concept of, let's say, packet analysis. And so,
Right.
we love bringing up packet analysis, I think,
It's because it's our favorite.
it is our favorite. But you can go into ChatGPT and be like, hey, can you help like conceptualize packet analysis for me? And like ChatGPT might say like, okay, well, what are your interests? And you'll be like, surfing. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about surfing and how you paddle out on the board and how packet. So let's say that there's a moral issue, or that a member of your family might be violating according to your religion or according to your beliefs, and this thing can help you kind of see it in a different light. That's great. That's an amazing use case for it.
Are you
On the
trying to
flip
tell
side,
me right now that people can use AI in combination with their religion in order to have a more expanded perspective and understanding, thus trying to make them more empathetic and open to the plights of others, and then creating a greater acceptance of people who are different?
couldn't have said it better myself. However, caveat. We thought that about social media too. And
Jesus.
and the only thing it ended up doing was locking us into our own echo chambers, right? And so we actually gained less of an understanding of how other people work, because we were able to find those little niche areas where, oh no, this person has the same beliefs as me, so that makes me feel a little bit more okay about my maybe crappy
Which
beliefs
is
that
why
I
I'm
might have about
starting
humanity.
FrankBible.ai, the only AI to use if you really believe in the same religion as me. That none others. I've used it to train off all the good dogma, none of the bad dogma, and you should only use this and make sure you homeschool your kids with it.
Yeah. And expanding on this, like
That's what's going to come.
I call the
Sorry.
Bible and Quran and Torah a data set, and in this case, it is right. It's something that ChatGPT can refer to, and something that we again refer to as human beings. We still interpret it differently, and ChatGPT would still interpret it differently as well, right? So it all depends on like the kind of context that you put around it. And so another thing that's a data set is us and our past behaviors and our past recordings of things, and that's another thing that ChatGPT and other LLMs are grabbing from. And so, and social media and Reddit is a really big feed for GPT, especially, I've noticed. And so, those are things you need to be cognizant of while you're bouncing ideas off of it, because it might be pulling information from a bad source. It might be pulling information, maybe not a bad source isn't the right way to put it, but not a source that you would necessarily
Well,
want
it
to base
depends
kind of your.
on which version of the Bible you're using and whether it's a bad source. Come now.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
being
yeah.
sarcastic. That's sarcasm, but
King James
also
versus
not based
yeah,
off denomination experience.
King James
Uh,
versus what's the new something Bible? I can't even
there's
remember
New
what it's called.
International
New
Version.
International, thank you.
And
The NIV.
the fights were real in the 90s. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
yeah. And apologies to our folks out there. Frank and I were just raised in the West, so the Bible is the one we go to. However,
Yeah.
we do understand that there is the Torah, that there are other religious texts out there,
Also,
ones that we are not even referring to right now. And really sorry about that. There's we're not endorsing one versus the other.
uh,
We're just talking in a context
I
that we
just had
understand.
a. Do you think there's different versions of like the Torah and the Quran? And they're like, no, but this is the special version, because you know how growing up, I'm sure they still exist. How they put out different versions of the Bible, and
Yeah,
then they put out versions of the Bible, different translations that then had, that pastor or whoever who would like eat for every Bible verse chunk. They'd be like, now
here's the
here's what it really
interpretation. Yeah,
means, and this is
yeah.
how you should really think about it. Oh my gosh. I never thought
But
of it
if
in the
you think
context
about
of
it,
other
like on
religions.
that note, Frank, though, so this is a way for you to, and for some of us, our spirituality or our relationship with God or gods or entities is is very personal, right? And
100%.
so instead of having a priest or a pastor or a rabbi talk to you and tell you how you should be interpreting these things, it is just you talking with something that's going to, but again, you just have to be cognizant that it's going to reflect back a lot of like how you feel about things. Or it's like, that is a good point. That's what ChatGPT tends to do. You
Right.
can change the settings on it to not agree with you, but then it's just following an algorithm. And that's another really important thing to think about. It still is your mind that you need to, and and your belief, like whether you believe in a soul or a a spark or whatever it is you might believe that your
They all spark,
spirituality is.
like Optimus
It's
Prime told us.
That's
Continue.
right. That's right. It is you need to make sure that you're kind of understanding that what you're doing is you're basically having a conversation with yourself, just with an external feed of something else, and understanding and being aware of that external feed. The same way you would be with, I would hope you would be with a member of the clergy. However, the member of the clergy, like, that's their job. That's their main job in life, is to study the religious text of your choice, and to be able to talk you through an issue you're having, a crisis you're having, whatever it is, within that sense. So, in no way would I say that this is a replacement for that, but for your own personal relationship and your own personal study, I think it's great for that.
Do you think religious leaders are concerned that people using AI might have a crisis of faith if they specifically ask? We're talking about something that has access to all these different data sets, and it's just like maybe one weird question away, like, hey, tell me the similarities between these three religious texts and why and how they're different, or provide the historical context of this specific book of the Bible. I know that that's been one that can really get a lot,
Hmm.
the one that can create a lot of questions, because what is it? I think it's the book of Judges, or maybe it's Ezekiel, where there's a lot of prophecies, right?
Hmm.
And some of them are considered to have implications way down the line from as far as time and space go. But if you look at the way it was originally written, part of it's written, and you look at the style of writing, the correct things that did come to pass
Hmm.
were written in a style of writing that came after those things happened. And
Yes.
then the things that haven't happened yet, or maybe don't line up yet, are written in a different type of style of, hey, it's a little hazy because now we're actually are, predicting, as it were. So, do you think there is any concern from religious leadership that people will use this tool and it could, from their perspective, lead them away,
Yeah.
accelerate that kind of thing?
I feel like there's already kind of a movement to kind of separate religion and science. And I think you'll agree with me on this. I don't think they're necessarily mutually exclusive, and I
Yeah,
think they
of
should
course.
probably be taken in that way. So, but look, this is where, like, you and I are not. First of all, quick, not caveat, but what's the word where you have to say, like, I'm not a financial
Disclaimer?
advisor? Disclaimer: Frank and I are not religious leaders. Do not take any religious advice from us. And I think
Do
most of
not.
you are like, yeah, we will not. Don't worry, Dustin.
I
Like,
can't
that's not.
stress enough.
Yeah.
Do not. Don't listen to me.
Um, but again, faith is so different. It is a very human thing, and it's not something that easily translates into ones and zeros. It's not something that easily translates into something that AI would be able to understand. And there I am anthropomorphizing AI even more by saying that it can understand something. It can't. It's just a computer program. That's all it is that we're talking about here. And so, to think that it could understand something, like, it doesn't understand love, it doesn't understand fear, it doesn't understand human emotions, and faith is, I guess, kind of maybe above human emotion. I'm sure my wife is, if she ever listens to this, she'll scream because she's a psychologist, and there's probably a term that I'm not saying correctly here. But look, faith is something that is very personal to most people. Some people like to share their faith, and that's totally fine. But I'm just saying it's very personal internally for them, to help them with struggles that they're having in their life. And that's not something that AI can understand. It is something that other humans can usually empathize with, sympathize with, understand, try to understand, talk through with other humans. And so that's not something this is going to be able to replace yet. AI as we know it today will not be able to replace that. And so I hope the clergy knows that. I hope that the Vatican understands that. Like, and but I do understand their concern, because there are people who are moving over to it, and I'm sure that is a concern of theirs, that it's like, oh well, this is going to either replace us, and it might replace God as well. But we've seen this so many times throughout history, where the church thinks that technology is going to replace God, and it hasn't yet, right? So past behavior predicts future behavior. AI is probably not going to replace God.
Talking about the clergy being able to process emotion and that AI cannot. Thought exercise here.
Sure.
If there's always if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to
Hmm.
hear it, doesn't make a sound.
Yeah.
Using that logic is not the experience of emotion based upon perspective. And as such, if you are the individual talking to the AI and the AI gives you a response that solicits an emotion, is that not an emotional exchange then? That when we say AI can't interpret emotions, it's taking in data, getting back to it, it's taking in data and then it's
Hmm.
generating something else. I'm not saying it's got a soul or a being or anything like that, although that's the next question I'm thinking of as this. So would it not be fair to then, and I'm not saying I agree with this, to consider the perspective that it does, in a sense, I don't like the term feel, but I can't think of anything else. It could have a feel at some point.
Why don't you like the term feel?
I don't like the idea of robots feeling. Doesn't make me
Because
comfortable.
because they can't right now, right?
Right.
It's a
But
like feelings are a very complex human. There's very complex human
I
brain
think my
activities
dog
that are happening.
feels.
It's a living being.
Right. But I like where's the feeling and emotion line at, I guess. And maybe it's more of a Star Wars or Star Trek. Oh yeah,
Star
yeah. Look,
Trek.
I
Yeah, we're
found
thinking
this.
of
I bought
Data.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um I got this summer at Disney. I maybe it's more of a Star Trek discussion, right? Yeah, Data, a great example. Did Data have feelings? Does Data experience emotion?
Yeah, he was eventually deemed by Starfleet to be a sentient being, right? Which is like, and again, we've had talks on Star Trek before where it's like we're so far away from being able to, but even in their advanced human society, they still had an issue with giving Data a human or a sentient being, an alien, being blessing off, if you will, pun intended. Um, and so yeah, the issue why, and you can't say it's an exchange because it's not feeling anything. You can't say that it is feeling anything because it's not feeling anything. So what are we really talking about here? And I think the best way to think about it is it's not an exchange between yourself and something else. It's it's an internal thought experiment that you are doing with yourself, and you're doing it with the
Oh,
data that's
using
being
an
presented
external
to you.
tool.
And to be fair, you're right. Like it can cause emotions. Like let's say that you're once again like you have a family member who you don't agree with their way of life or with the way they're living life because of your religious beliefs. But you talk to AI and you're like, oh, okay, I can see how maybe this is maybe it's just me using my own bias and maybe I shouldn't be thinking this way. And I'm not saying that that's how anybody should be feeling, but it can cause emotions, right? And so for you, I love the way that you're saying this because you're saying that it can still evoke an emotion. And sure, lots of things can still evoke an emotion. You can watch a movie that will make you cry, right? And that's not an exchange. That's just you're taking in data that is eliciting an emotional response, which is part of humanity because AI is built somewhat on humanity, on us. The data that it's providing is hopefully good and hopefully, but that's where the concern comes in then. So that's where the Vatican, that's where the grandfather of AI, that's where these programmers, the people who are running, open AI are like, we need to have some kind of guidance here on morality, on guardrails for what we're doing and how we're having this AI respond to things like this.
I'm
Is
gonna
how
ask.
Frank and Dustin get canceled, by the way. We're talking about
This
religion,
is gonna be it.
politics and religion. Are we going
It's
to do
gonna be
politics
this
next
this
episode?
episode. Well, there's so many more other reasons to cancel us. This would be, yeah, I guess this would be the conversation where I'd be like, that's fine. I'm talking about the things that matter most to people, their beliefs in the hereafter and so forth, and their religion. If that's the reason I get canceled because I'm actively trying to wrestle with the understanding of it in a technological world, I
Sure.
guess the jig's up for me. Um, do you okay? Again, asking Doctor Futurist Dustin Brewer
Let me put my
because
hat on.
I think I think I think this part could be inevitable if it keeps coming, but I want to know if you think it should happen. One, should an AI ever be baptized? And two, when do you think it'll happen? And three, what faith will do it? And four, don't forget, I am technically with the Universal Life Church, minister, and we could do this next week, and then maybe get like an extra dozen listeners slash viewers, and we can baptize an AI. Oh man, I think that would be maybe a step too far. I think even then my in-laws would disown me on top of everything else. Like that's just not. But we might get 12 more listeners.
So I was raised Catholic, and baptism is a very sacred thing in the Catholic religion. It's one of the sacraments, right?
I was raised Protestant in a non-denominational church where they just did it on Tuesdays for funsies. So,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
you go. Yeah. This is fun. This is fun. And I've been part of churches who, like, there are adults who are being baptized in like rivers and stuff like that. So I have seen that side of baptism. Baptism is a very holy, sacred thing, and I won't even venture to get. First of all, we're not doing it.
no,
Everybody,
no,
don't
no,
worry.
no, 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 no. No.
Nobody's baptizing anything
I
around
feel
here.
like that's one step too far in like the tempting fate things. Like, well, yeah, when they're like, where did he really go off the rails? Would you ever see that episode he baptized an AI? No.
But as far as somebody who's going to do it, I wouldn't be surprised if number one, it already hasn't been done. But if it hasn't been done, it's going to be done very soon.
Yeah,
The
because they're
church
going to
is
listen to our
going.
podcast and get an
Yeah, that's
idea.
right. They're gonna be like, "Oh, good idea. This is how I go viral," right? And like that's what it would all be about is like getting the name of their religion out there or whatever, right? And so there are so many sects of religion and so many different denominations and everything that there's going to be one that's going to say, "Yeah, we're going to do this," and we're the the religion of technocrats. I don't even know, but whatever it would be, right?
I'm going to ask AI what religion it thinks will baptize it first. What?
Okay.
Okay.
While you're asking AI, I'll continue on my tirade here.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I think a lot of people would draw the line on it too, like where, oh, that's silly, that's a gimmick, and then they would either ignore it or they would get really upset about it, and then it would be a big discussion happening between, it would be on all the news channels, and it would be sensationalized and everything else. And so the real question here kind of is like, how much do we let this get under our skin when people start treating it more like a human than it really needs to be treated like a human? Um, and don't get me wrong, this recording's going to be out there for a while, maybe. And to our, AI overlords, I just want to say that I am for, whatever it is that you think I should be for right now in the future. However, at this point in time, this is not something that needs to. I don't think we need to worry about. It's not anything that, if somebody does it, they're going to be doing it to be gimmicky. They're going to be doing it. They're not. It's not going to be a serious thing. And I really hope that people don't take it seriously. Frank, what'd you find?
Okay. Highest probability timeline is 2028 to 2038.
Okay.
Highest probability. Short answer. It says a small, non-mainstream Christian denomination, most likely a charismatic or independent evangelical group, is
Okay.
statistically and historically the most probable to attempt an AI baptism first. If baptism means a formal sacramental ritual performed on an AI. The most likely candidates are, as we said, the charismatic Christians and Pentecostals. That's just going to make them angrier.
Yeah, don't start naming it's different. Like, there's just like, but that's a
VR
good point. Though,
churches. They're talking about having because they've done VR church, and so as a result, I don't know if that's a 1-to-1. Just because you host your, you've got a Second Life. Because I remember when they had Second Life, some churches would be like, "Come to our church in Second Life." Just because maybe a church jumps onto that to get more people to attend. Or
They're gonna
live
baptize
streams,
an AI.
all of a sudden they're going to be like, I've brought Positron today. I've asked him up here with me, or she, or whatever. And Positron has proclaimed their faith and would like to be baptized. Oh, and if Positron's not waterproof, it's just going to kill it.
Yeah. You've seen the new robots, right? The new
I have.
the household robots.
Not a fan. Not a fan. Well, I'm a fan in that it's too much it seems cool, but it's too much promise. Everything's being sold on potential because 9 times out of 10, there's a little person in the background.
There's a person
controlling
working it. It's not actually controlling itself. It can do simple things like vacuuming, but we've already got vacuuming robots. So why do you need like a humanoid?
And they're not even that good all the time because I don't pick up after myself.
I saw somebody make a really good point on. Yeah, me neither. I saw somebody make a really good point on this on LinkedIn, and I wish I could remember their name so I can give them credit. But they basically said like, why are we still trying to build like humanoid robot? Like, why does it have to be a humanoid? Why does it have to look like a human? Like, couldn't it do functions that we can do much better even if it was a box or a cylinder or something like that?
What would you want it to look like, though? Like, what would you want?
What would I want it to look like? That's a good question. I guess I grew up in the. You're right. Okay, I see where you're going with this because in Star Wars, yeah, I want C-3PO. You know, I want him to be like, oh, hello, da, 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 you know, like that. That'd be great. However, R2D2 was my favorite, so I kind of like him to look like R2D2, but he's a little clunky and a little boxy, right? So you'd kind of need to figure out. Well, no, but his little things can like he can go upstairs and stuff, and he can fly too. Like R2D2 has little jetpacks, which they didn't really reveal until the newer ones. But anyway, so R2D2 is my answer. So a
I would
cylinder trash can. That's what
I
I
would
want my
want
robot.
mine to look like a 3.5-foot bear. That was like kinda like dog bear, friend
Like
companion.
in like in the movie with Haley Joel Osment, he had a little bear AI
Oh,
robot
no.
companion. Yeah.
I think I'm thinking more like Ewoks. But
Oh, okay. Yeah.
also side note, though, I think if we were going to I think the question's worthwhile. Why are we trying to make them humanoid? Because if you want them to be the most flexible and able to do all the tasks, they're probably gonna look like big octopuses or something, or those things from The Matrix, right? That have the flexibility and
Yeah,
ability
the
to do
squid
something.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I think it would probably what it would look like. I think
Yeah.
in the what and I'm sure there's roboticists out there who have grappled with this discussion already. But, like, I feel like so many of the drones we're making that are not aerial drones are confined to the context of looking like us or dogs, and that's the only 2 options. So,
I
I don't know.
agree. I agree. That is funny that those are the two like beings that we picked to
Well,
make the
because
robot.
Boston what is it? Boston Dynamics made the
Boston
one, and it's a
Dynamics. Yeah.
dog,
It's a
basically,
dog, and they have the human one too. But yeah.
and they've kept that dog look for the longest time, even though, f like, for a decade there, it was just not working. You have to think at
No.
some point someone was like, "Maybe not dog." I don't know, but,
Yeah, who cares if
again
it's got wheels? Like, I don't understand. It is kind of funny. Like when that came up, I was like, oh, I get it. But then when you brought that up, I was like, oh yeah, because we're still trying to like play on the nostalgia of like, of course, every single millennial man at this point grew up wanting to have a robot as a best friend, right? Like that was
well,
always
some
like,
of us did. Don't forget Teddy Ruxpin.
right. Teddy Ruxpin and Furby. They were the later millennials, but they're still millennials.
That's true.
They had
That's
Furbies,
true.
but
Now they're probably gonna make, like, animatronic Labubus, and those things scare me the way they look with their sharp teeth. Ugh.
yeah, don't
Um,
let's not give robots teeth yet, okay? Can we hold off on that? Fine, baptism, that's
yeah,
fine. Don't
baptism,
don't give them teeth.
don't give them teeth. Don't give them teeth,
Don't
though.
baptize them either. I
That's where
understand.
we're like, I don't know."
Yeah,
So,
you
okay.
have a line of teeth.
Do you think as a result then when they're talking about the human decency aspect, do you think there should be some kind of and we see it in a lot of Heinlein's books, right? Like iRobot and so forth. Do you think there should be then as we're developing AI, there should be like almost like a 10 commandments then that should be
Yeah.
applied?
I don't know because that always seems to backfire in those books, right? Where it's like the best way to serve mankind is to destroy it. You know, it's like, okay, like there's no way around this, right? So you have to be like really specific, I
Some
think.
might even suggest the 10 commandments have backfired a little bit with so many people fighting over the different ways to interpret them, but please continue.
To be fair, yeah, to be fair, and we're treading on incredible. We've been treading on incredibly thin. We probably fell through the ice. Screw it, like we're done. And we fell through the ice at some point with talking about religion and technology already. Um, yeah, yes, I think there has to be some kind of ethical boundaries here, and I think that they're working on it already. Obviously, the problem is that they only really start working on it again when it becomes a problem. So when somebody does, decide to take their own lives based off of a conversation they had with AI, or someone does decide to take medical advice from AI and overdoses or underdoses or whatever it is their medication that they're supposed to be taking, or stops taking their medication, and then has a mental breakdown. So we still are in this very reactive period with it. We're still not quite in a proactive period with it, and that goes right along with the Gartner hype cycle of things, right? So we're still at this like pinnacle. People think we're way further along on the Gartner hype cycle. We are not. We are still at this very tippity top of like
Yeah.
this thing's awesome. It's amazing. We're just gonna keep progressing for the sake of for the sake of continuing this continuing the development and continuing to try to make money and get the best marketing out there and all this other stuff. And so I think the Vatican is a good signal. I think we need more religious leaders to kind of come together, not just the Vatican release something, but the Vatican get with synagogues and get with temples and get with
Maybe a
other religions
mosque or
around the
two in
world.
there.
Yes, a mosque and to start really thinking about these things with other religious leaders and say, guys, we got to start coming together on we got to start coming together on some things here, which they've done in the past for other things as well. But at the same time, also recognizing that this is, we're still in the very early phases of this. We've seen this with religion and technology before, where religion is convinced that technology is going to and science are going to ruin everything, or ruin religion. And again, over the course of human history, that has not happened yet. Uh, you know, we'll see. I guess is that that's my best futurist response for you, Frank. We'll see. What do you think?
I'm just wondering if Jesus was like an organic AI.
You're really going in deep on this one. Uh,
Sorry,
and
you asked what do I think, and I
no, I know.
shared my thoughts in my brain.
No, I totally get it. And this kind of goes into like, the simulation theory of being, more kind of proved, because it's funny, like as much as we see Jesus, or as much as people who believe in Jesus might see Jesus or God as like these entities, and then the closer we get to creating life, or creating our own being, the more we're like, oh wait, well, is this just what God did? And if that's the case, or was Jesus just AI? If that's the case, does that change things really?
What if we're just Sims and God is AFK, right? And he like these showed up at one point. He's like, oh man, I got to get in my first person avatar to like try and like go down and sort this out. He's
But
like,
what does that change? I guess is my point. Like,
what changes
okay,
nothing.
right,
I mean, it's the ant cannot comprehend the mountain and stuff like that or whatever.
right.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, we don't have any good answers. We hope you've enjoyed this episode that's made both us and you incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it really
Until
has. Thank you for leading us through this, Frank.
you're very
No,
welcome.
yeah, I think we got through some good stuff though, and to be honest with you, this is one of those things where we're not going to have any answers for you. Obviously, the Pope doesn't even have any answers for you yet. But to
Well, the Pope didn't write this one. This was from a
yeah,
cardinal. Maybe Pope has answers.
there we go.
He's just putting the fine points on it.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Until next week, where Dustin will probably be leading the discussion and coming up with the points next week and here on after. We still don't have a catchphrase, and well, thank you for some of you for submitting them, but we're still in the hunt. So until then, think about all we've told you, but not too hard because it's upset me. So we'll talk to you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay secure, and keep. What'd you say last week? Keep on cybering.
Keep
There
on
you go.
cybering.